Welcome to the fifth pillar of this training, which is all around managing and defining mental load in the relationship. So let's just dive right in and understand what is mental load, because this concept is being tossed around Instagram left, right, and center these days, and a lot of people don't understand what it is. So mental load is the cognitive and emotional effort of managing life, which includes planning, organizing, and remembering the often invisible work of daily tasks, right? Managing household schedules, anticipating needs. The way that I've heard women describe mental load is that it's like the 1,000 tabs that are always open in her brain. It's that the dog needs to go to the vet and the groceries need to be done and there's a spill on the carpet that needs to be cleaned and my husband has an appointment and I've got work and laundry needs to be done and the soap is out of that bathroom, I got to replace that. And it's these constant tasks that are going and going and going and going. And a lot of the times these things fall on women. And what I want to do is I want to really get into how do we create a dynamic in our relationships that is a lot more balanced, that is a lot more fair? Because on average, studies have now shown that on average, women work 90 hours a week between their job and being the household manager of the home, whereas men on average work about 50 hours a week between the two. So there's a huge discrepancy between how much work overall are people doing in their work and the home. And right now, women are working way more. So the goal is to become more of a team, to become more equitable. And it's like both parties are contributing to this invisible labor as well as the actual physical labor. So we're going to dive into that. So take a quick sip of my coffee. One thing I want to note is that this might be a highly sensitive topic for you because this is something that causes a lot of issues in relationships. I actually believe that the mental load, this mental, emotional, physical labor conversation is what leads ultimately to divorce. Men often complain in relationships that their partner doesn't have the energy for sex. She's tired. But if you actually were to look at this conversation, it's because the 1,000 tabs that are open in her brain, it's the million things that are going on. She's exhausted. She's tired. She doesn't have a lot of energy left, a lot of vitality left for intimacy. So it would make a lot of sense that would be happening. So one of the best ways is to let's get your partner less exhausted and actually start having these conversations and start building these systems to get these things figured out. So when we look at a task, I want to get you guys to understand that every task has 3 phases. There's the conception, there's the planning, and there's the execution. And this part took me forever to understand, but guys, men, we're really good at the executing, right? Just, hey babe, tell me what to do and I'll do it. But the problem is that we're not really recognizing that the conception, the planning is an enormous amount of cognitive load. It's an enormous amount of thinking. So let's look at dinner. Let's take dinner for an example. The execution would be, hey, babe, I can cook dinner tonight. But the conception is at 11 o'clock in the morning thinking, hey, I want to make sure we cook a nice meal tonight that's rich of protein and vegetables, but we don't have anything in the fridge. Okay, well then, okay, great. You've concepted the fact that we need to go to the grocery store to cook dinner. So now here comes the planning piece. Who's the person that's going to be deciding what meal are we cooking tonight? Okay, great. Now, looking at the ingredients, do we have all the ingredients? Going down to the kitchen in the cupboard and seeing, do we have all the ingredients? Yes, no. Okay, now I have to make a list of the ingredients we don't have. Okay, well, what else are we out of? Because breakfast is coming up in the morning. So as you can see, there's an enormous amount of logistics and planning that's happening in the background in order to get that meal on the table. You have planning, you have groceries, you have checking the ingredients, you have the cooking, the cleaning. Are there any allergies? Are there things your kids won't eat? Are there ingredients that are too spicy? How spicy? Okay, my husband doesn't like super spicy, so I have to dial that back, or my wife likes it really hot, so I have to pay attention. There's a million things. Okay, so even another example could be, because I'm a big fan of examples in practice. I have dog food written down, right? The conception would be noticing that the dog is out of food. That's step number 1. Planning is step number 2. Okay, on Tuesday, I'm going to pick up food after soccer practice. Great. Execution is actually just the driving to the store to get dog food. So in many cases, men do the execution when asked, but often neglect the first two. And the first two is the exhausting part. I'm not going to lie. It's really easy to get a text from, my wife and be like, hey, pick up dog food. Yeah, done. I head from the cafe. I had to get some dog food. I don't have to think. I can still be thinking about work or whatever. I'm going to go get dog food. But she's the one that's constantly having to remember. Right? And these are the often overlooked subtasks that default to women. There's a book called Fair Play that talks about women being like the she-fault parent, where all of these subtasks and these conception and planning tasks get defaulted onto women because most of us grew up with men that didn't do these things and women did it all. So then that's how we learned on either end. Like we don't do it. We're responsible for it. And they're the complete opposite. Right. So when we look at all the subtasks that need to be considered, think about like a road trip, right? Like let's just pretend you're heading out on a road trip on Tuesday, right? You have to start thinking about it. You have to start training your brain to be like, well, we're heading on a road trip. What are the things that need to be thought about, right? Finding the route, checking the weather. What are the snacks? Are we buying snacks? Are we making snacks? Where are the gas stops? How long do we go? Do we need a dog sitter? Okay, great. We need to write a note to the dog sitter to let them know that our dog is allergic to chicken, that they can't have these treats. Okay, closing up the house. Like, is the stove off? Are the lights off? Are the heaters off? Right? Texting somebody to put out the garbage bins. These are just a fraction of all the tasks. And if you have kids, multiply that list by like fucking 100. And these are very, very often overlooked. And the reason I know that this is so exhausting is when I started learning about these things and started taking it over, man, I was like, holy shit, planning is exhausting. Right? We're going on a snowboard trip next week, and then we're going to Mexico with my family. And it's like, do we have the right sunscreens? Do we have enough do we have 2 bathing suits? Like, what are we packing? Sandals? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing for food when we get there? Are we going to the grocery store? Are we going to grab dinner? No, okay, we're going to go to the grocery store. Great. Well, then we need to meal prep and plan for the week when we're there to know what we're buying at the grocery store, so we're not going to waste money. And the tasks go on and on and on. Okay, so I really want to nail that for you guys, that there are 3 components, every single task that you can think about: conception, planning, execution. So my recommendation would be, if you're a man and you're really good at executing, if you're going to own a task, you have to own all 3 parts of the task. So it doesn't mean you have to do the task, right? You could actually say to your wife, hey, I've picked 4 meals. I've already built the list. Are you able to swing by the grocery store on your way home? So she's actually executing doing the groceries, but you've already done the planning work. You've done the conception. You've built the meal plans. You're just giving her a list, and then she's going to go execute. Or you can go execute that as well. But just because you're, owning the task doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be the one that's executing on it. But generally speaking, that's the best way that this stuff works. Okay? So, coffee. I love that I don't edit these videos. The next thing I want to dive into is around minimum standard of care. So I want you to pick like one task that you already own and write out the kind of like, what's the good enough bar for this week? As clear detail as you can. Some examples that I've got written down here are like, let's look at laundry. The wash, an example minimum standard of care is that when the wash basket gets full, it gets washed and put away within 24 hours. Or in our case with garbages, for example, like once the garbage reaches the top of the bin, our accepted, agreed upon minimum standard of care is that the garbages go out. And the garbages are my task. So if I let those garbages get overflowing or get really stinky, then I'm not maintaining our minimum standard of care. So the whole point here is that like we need to communicate within all of these different tasks and agree on what is the bare minimum standard of care that we're both going to agree upon, right? Is it that the grass gets mowed before it reaches 4 inches? Maybe the litter box is scooped every other day and into a plastic trash bag and then brought straight out. So I recommend going through all of the things that are regarding cleaning, and with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, whoever's watching this video, and really start to get into, like what's our minimum standard? When do we dust, right? Rather than just being like every Saturday, paying attention to what the minimum standard of care is. And one thing I want to notice here is that the goal isn't always to do 100% of everything. It's about being 100 in the relationship dynamic. So rather than being like, oh, I'm going to only do these 50, you're going to do these 50, it's like, okay, you generally have your zones in the house or the zones that you want to do. And then each of you own those things, because if you both divide everything, let's just say 50-50 for argument's sake, if you both divide all your stuff and you're both owning conception, planning, and execution, you shouldn't have to keep tabs on the other person. Like, you just trust that they're doing theirs, you're doing yours. But what ends up happening is that when one person is not holding the standard of care, or they're not executing, or they're dropping the ball, the other person needs to take over, and that's where the imbalance happens. So it's really about like getting in the practice of noticing, doing more, doing without asking. For men, it's a lot of time, it's like avoiding this mother dynamic and figuring out how do we just get automatic with these things, automate tasks where needed, delegate tasks where needed. One thing that I've been doing is around making sure that we have enough constant food in the house, like doing a Costco order every 2 Sundays, right? We live in a small town. We're about an hour and a half from a Costco. I find a huge pain in the ass. It's a 4-hour trip, hour and a half down, hour in the store, hour and a half back. And that takes up an entire half day, and I'm tired. And then you got to lug all the groceries in. So I don't want to do that. Where I find for me to solve that, spending a couple extra bucks to have it delivered with Instacart has been huge, absolutely huge, having that brought to our home. Then I can at least make sure that I'm keeping up with our agreed minimum standard of making sure that we always have, fresh food in the house as much as possible. So, if you want a further resource on mental load, like I like to keep it bare simple, right? Understand that there's these 3 things, understand that there's minimum standards of care, and then it's just about like executing, right? If you want some tools for success, the book is called Fair Play. They actually have a deck of cards as well. It's the Fair Play Method by Eve Rodsky. It's like a pink and orange book, like a peach colored book. I'm seeing it over there. I'm seeing the box of cards, and check out that book on mental load. It is completely eye-opening. If you're a man and you want to read it, you're going to get a sense of all of the ways that you're potentially defaulting to her. And other tools for success, like calendar reminders, Google Tasks, using AI automation where possible. I use this tool called Saner.ai. It's basically Saner. Saner. It's basically like an AI personal assistant for ADHD that you can integrate with your calendar and your emails, and you can talk to it like with voice recognition. So you can be like, hey, can you set a reminder for Saturday to call the bank or whatever it is? And then it'll remind you, like it'll pop up on your phone that day. You can ask it to scrub your emails. Hey, what have I missed from communications from a landlord, or what am I not missing? You can say, hey, can you set a reminder 2 weeks before our trip to go through a packing list, and then it'll remind you in the 2-week date. So there's lots of tools that you can use. But then the other thing too is if you're like me and you do have ADHD, utilizing the 60-second rule is huge. Like if I can get it done in 60 seconds, just do it. You know what I mean? Like if it's like I've noticed that the garbage has to go down, if it takes a minute, just do it now, then it's done with, and then it never actually overflows. And then the last bit of advice I want to give you is around a relationship check-in. So I had a coach call it a boring meeting, but if you can meet once a week and just talk about these things, hey, here's what I did well, here's what I haven't done well, here's what I'm working on, here's what I have planned, like having some sort of a weekly relationship check-in. They're boring, they're not fun, but it keeps you guys in constant communication. And if there's any repair that needs to be done, like if you're not owning something or you are falling behind and you're out of integrity there, then you can have those conversations within the relationship check-in. But it also just keeps conversations open and keeps you guys in flow. It keeps the resentments down. It keeps the tension down. And I just find that, my wife and I have a relationship check-in every single week. It's been a really crucial part of our practice and our relationship dynamic together to maintain that teamwork. So that concludes pillar 5. I know it was a really quick one, but I don't want to get too nitty gritty. I want to give you guys the tactics that you can actually take away in your life that you're going to need. So yeah, I mean, that concludes this course. This is really all around how to show up better in relationship. And most of my audience is men, but I try to film this course in a way that is relevant to everyone. And depending on what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, you can take away the bits and pieces that you want. And yeah, one thing I will notice that if you do want deeper support in implementing a lot of these parts of the training, I do have private one-on-one coaching that I work on with men. It incorporates couple sections. It's a 4-month private coaching container to take men from a place of, they're holding on to the relationship, things aren't really going well, and we completely turn things around. With a variety of trauma-informed. I'm a trained trauma-informed coach, and I've been working with men in the realm of men's work and relationships over the last number of years, and I've served over 150 men between my men's groups, my programs, and my one-on-one clients. So this is a deep passion of mine, and it is my career. This is my life. This is my world. This is my mission, is to serve 1 million men and stepping into their true potential. So if you want to explore working with me one-on-one and diving deeper, then you can click the link down there in the description. We can hop on a call and we can see if private coaching is right for you. I hope you enjoyed this very long video. Hope you enjoyed this training. And I really look forward to hopefully working with you and seeing you guys improve your relationships. Cheers.